There's exactly one way to make money in gambling where you're not able to lose. And I don't mean probably. I don't mean over a long enough time horizon. I mean the arithmetic will not let that happen. If two bookmakers disagree about the price of a football game by enough, all you have to do is back both sides of that market at once, and no matter what the players do out there, you're going to get paid. Now that's arbitrage. The market offered you this price the whole time. There is no skill in it, and at the end of the day, a calculator could do the work. So I spent 3 months building the calculator. And I want to be upfront with you here because you're going to need to know this later. I didn't write a single line of it. Quick word on the credentials, because I think you're going to want to know what you're dealing with. I'm not a quant. I'm not an engineer. I don't work at a fund. I don't work anywhere. And up until March, I couldn't have told you what a schema was. What I do have is 350 hours of doing absolutely fuck all, and a fairly serious grudge against every bookmaker in this country. Those turn out to be the only qualifications this market asks for now. And I'll let you decide whether that's the most hopeful sentence in this video or the most depressing. For those of you who've never done this, an ARB is not a prediction, and that's the part everybody gets wrong. I never know who wins. I've never known who wins. At the end of the day, knowing who wins is the least profitable skill you can have. What I'm saying is that the price is wrong. Sportsbet thinks one thing, FanDuel thinks another, and if we look at the two of them together, they've accidentally offered you a combined implied probability under 100%. That's a mispriced market, and it doesn't care what you think about the football. So you want to put your capital on both sides of the market in the right ratio. One leg pays, the other leg loses. The difference is yours, and your exposure to the actual sport is zero. Webster Dictionary defines an ARB as the act of placing both sides of the same game at two books that literally can't go tits up.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
And the model works. I want to say that plainly before this video goes where it's going, because I think a lot of you are going to assume it doesn't. I'm up about $3,000 in under 2 months, trading a bankroll that a lot of real gamblers would describe as an insult. And not a dollar of that return came from being right about a single sporting event. I'd love to be able to give you a more precise number, and I genuinely can't because the logging's been inconsistent. That's the polite version. The real version is that I built 3 separate systems to track all of my own money, and I still had to take a guess at the profit. Free money, approximately. So let's talk about how the fucking thing got built, because I think this is the part you actually came for. The terminal scrapes 8 bookmakers, normalizes every market into a single schema, and prices the lot. About 200,000 lines, 2,815 tests. And what I did, functionally, was open a window and type what I wanted in plain English, then read what came back, then say, no, that's wrong, do it again. That was it. That was the whole method. I just described a machine, and something else wrote it over and over for 3 months. Now I know how that sounds, and I want to be careful here, because a version of me from a couple of years ago would find this genuinely offensive. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I engineered anything, because I didn't. I just complained at a language model until the tests went green. When it broke a book's parser, I told it the parser was broken. When it invented a market that doesn't exist, I told it the market doesn't exist. When it priced a leg off stale odds, I told it the odds were stale.
Wow, you're so dominant.
Somewhere around week 6, it started catching my mistakes before I did, which was a genuinely humbling shift in the balance of the relationship. So any degenerate watching this can go and build the exact same trading model. I'm not being modest. That's the actual finding. The barrier isn't intelligence anymore, and it isn't capital. It's just whether you're able to be bothered for 3 months. That's the whole moat now. And it's a fucking terrible moat. And it knows a lot of things I don't. Here's my favorite. Neds and Ladbrokes are both owned by Entain, and they run off the exact same pricer. So their odds are always identical. So you can never arb one against the other. The model groups them and refuses the trade. There's a function in there whose entire job is to know that 2 of the 8 bookmakers in this country are the same fucking broker wearing a different hat. Nobody at at either company had to tell me that. I found out because something I didn't write wouldn't let me place the bet. There's also a file called Anti-Limiting Stakes, which is my favorite for slightly darker reasons. See, if you win consistently, the books aren't going to ban you in some dramatic way. They just quietly decide that your maximum position on an NRL market is now $4.80, and nobody sends you a letter about it. So this file shapes my stake sizes so they look like a normal idiot's stake sizes. Round numbers, sensible amounts, a bit of variance. And keep in mind, the reward for being good at this is that they take it away from you. So I asked a machine to help me look more retarded than I am, and I'd like you to know it was extremely fucking good at it. Straight away, first go. So that's the honest accounting on the software. I own a machine that prints free money with no market exposure, and I contributed roughly none of it. So if you want to do this, keep in mind the code is not the hard part, and it hasn't been the hard part for about a year now, except for one part. There's one part of this that didn't come out of a model, and it's the only part I'm actually proud of, so I'm going to take my time. Here's the shape of it. What you want to do is take the under on a low line at one book and the over on a high line at another book. Not the same line, two lines, 4 points apart. So let's take a look at a real one. Under 43.5 at Sportsbet, over 47.5 at Neds. If the market settles under 43, the first leg pays. If it settles over 48, the second leg pays. You're going to win in basically every world there is. Your downside is capped, and that's the part that makes you feel clever. But there is a small window in the middle, anything from 44 through 47. And if the final score lands in there, you don't lose one leg of this position. Both legs lose, which is going to sound like the setup for a video about how I lost all of your money. And I'd have made that video happily, but the numbers refuse to cooperate. Across the markets, I've narrowed this down to 19 separate positions, $8,065 of capital traded, a 9.26% return on stake, and not one losing trade. AFL first quarter totals are 16 from 16. And the reason isn't the sport, it's the length of the game you're pricing. A quarter of basketball only ever finishes on about 4 different totals, because there are only so many fucking possessions in 10 minutes, and the broker is going to price his line right on top of the mode. Put a 4-point window over the top of that, and what you've built is a trap for yourself. So you don't want to do that. You want to do the exact opposite of that. And then there's rugby league, which is where I want to spend a minute, because this is mine. In the NRL, a try is 4 points, a conversion is 2, a penalty goal is 2. Every single way to score in that game is an even number, with one exception, and that's the field goal, worth 1 point. And nobody kicks them anymore, because the modern game coached it out. So I went and pulled all of the NRL final totals the model had ever graded, and 78% of them are even. Not 50, 78. In all of the other sports on the board, it's a coin flip. AFL is 53, baseball is 56, but rugby league is a game that can barely produce an odd number. So what you want to do is put the window on the odd numbers. That's the whole idea. If your band runs 43 to 45 instead of 44 to 46, you've covered 2 odd totals and 1 even instead of 2 evens and 1 odd, and you've pointed your dead zone at the numbers a rugby league game struggles to make. Same bet, same books, same 4 points, just one number to the left. And the wider band means a higher return. And it's been insanely profitable. The model's graded 386 of those now, and 364 of them came in. That's mine. That came out of a guy with no job looking at a scoreboard, and I'd like the record to show that a language model with all of human knowledge sitting inside it did not think of that. Some unemployed degenerate did. There's a third system I haven't mentioned, and I'll be quick because it's the well-behaved one. It estimates the true probability of an outcome, strips the bookmaker's margin out of the price to work out what the market is actually pricing, and then it tells me when those numbers don't match. That's a value pick. It's what every degenerate tipster on the internet claims to have, and I can tell you right now not one of them does. That's up about $3,000 in profit as well, over the same 2 months. Every night it retrains, prices all of the AFL and baseball markets it can see, and then it's going to surface at most a single pick for tomorrow, 1. And most nights what it returns is no bet. So I've written a gambling model whose primary output is telling me not to gamble, and I want to stress again that when I say I wrote it, what I mean is I asked for it. Which brings us to the number I actually think about. The gap-arb model calculates for each opportunity it finds a conservative expected value and a flag called qualified. Just a little integer sitting right there on the screen next to the price. 1 means the numbers support the trade, 0 means they don't. Across the whole history, it graded and settled 1,010 of these, and the number of times it set that flag to yes is 0. 0. It has never once agreed with me on this trade. The one idea in this entire project that came out of a human being is the one idea my own model has never signed off on. And I'm the retarded degenerate who built the flag. But who gives a fuck? I was actually right this time. So that's where I've ended up. 3 months, 200,000 lines I didn't write, 211,372 prices, 8 bookmakers, and about $8,000 in total profit I can't account for to the dollar because I couldn't be bothered pressing a fucking button. The machine did all of the work and had none of the ideas. I did none of the work and had one idea about field goals. And at the end of the day, it's the only part of this that was ever worth anything. To the degenerates still writing their own DD at 2 in the morning, I wish you flat stakes, boring markets, odd endpoints, no leverage, and 3 months of nothing better to do. That's all it takes now. That's the horrifying part.